Good evening. You're watching the News at 6 with me, Ishan Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling you in on them over the next half hour, including a special focus on the new draft civil aviation policy. How can that change the way carriers work in India, and what does that mean for tariffs? We'll be talking about that to a special guest as well. But first, the headlines that we're tracking right now. Beef controversy reflects in Moody's review. Ratings agency cautions Modi government that it will lose credibility if it doesn't check provocative comments. In Bihar, the Grand Alliance leaders approach Election Commission, demand action on Amit Shah for allegedly making communal remarks. The Tamil Nadu police slapped sedition charge on folk singer for criticizing Chief Minister J. Jayalalitha. And Women's Court in Mumbai awards death sentence to convict Chandrabhan Sanap in the rape and murder of software engineer Esther Anuya. Well, a top focus this evening, the Civil Aviation Ministry has proposed a 2% levy on most domestic and international airline tickets in its draft aviation policy. Now, the measure is expected to raise 15 billion rupees to improve regional air travel infrastructure. The ministry says that these funds will be used to reopen hundreds of unused airstrips, no-frills airports, and providing finance to keep fares on regional routes at 2,500 per hour of travel.
We invite suggestions from stakeholders, from the public, because this involves the people of the country. And all those suggestions that come in, we'll be looking at it.
किस तरह हम विश्व के जो 10वें स्थान पर हम एविएशन इंडेक्स पर हैं, हमारा टारगेट है कि हम उसमें तीसरे स्थान पर आने की क्षमता भारत के अंदर है.
The draft civil aviation policy, of course, remember, this is a draft right now. As the minister was saying over there, public comments are invited on how can aviation further be improved. As far as the domestic carriers are concerned, in India, they've been in a lot of trouble, most of them. In fact, there have been airlines such as Kingfisher, which have seen as far as revenues are concerned, a lot of problems as far as management and also other things. In fact, the Civil Aviation Ministry has often been criticized for not keeping a tight leash on the aviation sector in terms of ensuring that it grows as well as getting the best companies in terms of setting standards for that. So the new draft civil aviation policy that has come in talks about a 2% levy on most domestic and international airline tickets. In fact, the measure is expected to raise about 15 billion rupees to improve regional air travel infrastructure. The ministry also says that the funds will be used to reopen hundreds of airstrips that are not used, no-frills airports, and provide finance to keep fares on regional routes at 2,500 per hour of travel. Let's go across to former Civil Aviation Secretary Ajay Prasad, who joins us. Thank you very much for talking to us, Mr. Prasad. Very quickly, as far as this draft aviation policy is concerned, do you think it would affect the problems or it would rather address the problems that the civil aviation sector, which was much touted at one point of time in India, is facing?
No, I think this draft policy, which has been enunciated today, is a very comprehensive attempt to address these major concerns. And the most important takeaway from this policy that I find is the fact that we are trying to address the question of regional connectivity and thereby trying to fix tariffs at a rate of 2,500 rupees per hour is a very bold initiative. And for that, a 2% tariff hike on other fares may be necessary. But I don't think the customers should really mind that. In the overall interest, I think this is something very positive.
All right,
the second important area which I think this policy...
Go ahead, sir.
Sorry?
Go ahead. The second point you were making.
The second important... The second important area which I find is takes its inspiration from the Prime Minister's Make in India policy, where an emphasis has been given on building up the MRO industry. Now, India has a huge potential in this area. We give our business to neighboring countries at the moment, and I think it is important that we should build up this industry here. and for that some incentives have been proposed, like waiving of service tax, etc.
Right.
I think these are important. There are other very important aspects also. One is the helicopters to enable helicopters and emergency helicopter ambulance services, etc. If the helicopters can fly below 5,000 feet, they don't have to seek prior permission of the ATC.
Right.
I think this will go a long way in helping the development of ambulance services in the country. So I think, and there are of course other important areas which have also been addressed, but to my mind these were the more important takeaways.
All right, indeed important takeaways, and if implemented could potentially transform the aviation sector. But Mr. Prasad, the aviation sector, I mean, you were in charge of civil aviation for one point of time for the country in that sense as the civil aviation secretary. So in terms of the problems that afflicted the sector, the fact that we saw a big boom in this and then suddenly that bubble burst, and how we are placed right now, do you think this kind of a fillip is necessary and can be easily implemented and will bear the desired results?
You see, the civil aviation sector in India suffers from some systemic flaws. But one of the major things is the taxation structure. Now, unless this policy says that it will address the issues of the pricing of aviation turbine fuel and other fiscal incentives in this area, now state government cooperation is necessary in this regard. I'm sorry, I have a bad throat today.
No, so, please, if you want to have some water or something, go ahead.
So, as I was saying, both for the growth of the airlines, rationalization of ATF is very important.
Right.
And secondly, even for the smaller airports, unless the state governments come on board with certain incentives and certain concessions that it have been proposed,
Right.
This policy will need all the help it can to implement some of these ideas.
All right, certainly it does. We'll, of course, have a larger discussion on this, Mr. Prasad, and we'll, of course, call you in for that to discuss the aviation sector as a whole, because this is one area that the country really needs to function. And as far as the government's ambitious plans and reforms are concerned, this is a core area. Thank you very much, Mr. Ajay Prasad, for coming in and helping us understand the first draft civil aviation policy a little better. Well, moving on now, Moodys has become the first major global institution to comment on the recent political controversies in India. In a report on India's outlook, Moodys Analytics says it is important for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to keep fringe elements in check or risk losing credibility. However, it also clarifies that the report does not reflect the opinions of Moody's Investor Service, the global credit rating agency.
The controversies surrounding beef has focused international attention on India. Referring to the ethnic tensions in the wake of these controversies, rating agencies Moody's has said that the Prime Minister must keep BJP members in check or risk losing domestic and global credibility. The comments were made in a report titled India Outlook Searching for Potential by Moody's Analytics, the Economic Research and Analysis Division of Moody's Corporation. The report says, while Modi has largely distanced himself from the nationalist jibes, the belligerent provocation of various Indian minorities has raised ethnic tensions. Along with a possible increase in violence, the government will face stiffer opposition in the upper house as debate turns away from economic policy. Modi must keep his members in check or risk losing domestic and global credibility. In the report, Moody's Analytics has projected India's GDP growth for the September quarter at 7.3% and for the full fiscal at 7.6%. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, the Tamil Nadu Cybercrime Police has arrested a folk singer S. Shivadas, alias Kovan, for allegedly making derogatory remarks against Chief Minister Jai Jayalalitha. The 45-year-old singer has demanded closure of liquor shops in the state.
Folk artist Kovan was detained by the Chennai police allegedly for criticizing the Jayalalitha government. He had recently released a song on alcoholism, blaming the Jayalalitha government. His lawyer said he faces charges of sedition and attempt to create enmity between groups.
He sang a song against government and liquor shop, and he made some statements regarding the government and its act. They are protesting, they are suppressing the protests of the people. In this song, that's why they filed sedition and other criminal charges against him.
Kovan belongs to the MKIK group, whose supporters protested against his detention. His song protests about the rising prices of education and food in the state, for which he holds the chief minister responsible. Elsewhere, he appeals to the ruling party to shut down liquor shops that have ruined the state. Opposition parties, including the DMK, have been calling for a ban on liquor in the state. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to news from the elections in Bihar, and BJP President Amit Shah's comment that Diwali will be celebrated in Pakistan if the BJP loses in Bihar has come under criticism from opposition parties. The Grand Alliance has lodged a protest with the Election Commission demanding action against Shah.
गलती से भी अगर भारतीय जनता पार्टी बिहार में हार गई तो जय पराजय तो बिहार में होगी, पटाखे पाकिस्तान में जाकर चलेंगे.
BJP chief Amit Shah's remark that there will be celebrations in Pakistan if his party loses the Bihar assembly polls has been severely criticized by political rivals. Even his own party members were on the back foot when it came to defending their president.
पाकिस्तान में पटाखे छूटेंगे जो राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष ने कहा.
देखिए, जो हमारे राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष ने कहा वो इस सोच के आधार पर कहा है कि जहां तक पाकिस्तान का प्रश्न है, भारत ने बराबर अपनी तरफ से कोशिश की है कि पाकिस्तान हमारा पड़ोसी देश है, उसके साथ हमारे रिश्ते बेहतर हों. लेकिन पाकिस्तान का रुख जैसा सकारात्मक होना चाहिए वो नहीं रहा है. ये बहुत ही दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण रहा है. तो शायद इस सोच के आधार पर उन्होंने कहा होगा कि भारत में यदि मजबूत सरकार यदि रहेगी तो शायद ये पाकिस्तान को अच्छा नहीं लगा होगा. शायद इस सोच के आधार पर उन्होंने कुछ कहा होगा.
The opposition is seeing his comment as an attempt to communalize the ongoing elections in Bihar. RJD chief Lalu Prasad called Shah's remark an insult to the people of the state.
अमित शाह नरभक्षी जो है, भाजपा का जो अध्यक्ष है, ये बिल्कुल पागल हो गया है. ये पूरे बिहारी लोगों को इसने अपमानित किया है. बिहार की जनता इन लोगों को धूल चटा दिया है हम लोगों ने.
The Congress too was swift to take on Amit Shah on the issue. Former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram mocked Shah's remark on Twitter. If BJP loses in Bihar, there will be celebrations and relief among many others, writers, scientists, historians and moderate citizens.
गलती से तो हम बीजेपी को हरा नहीं सकते हैं, सही उनको हरा सकते हैं और हराएंगे और हरा रहे हैं. और जबकि वो कहते हैं कि पाकिस्तान में पटाखे बजेंगे, मैं उनसे कहना चाहता हूं कि बीजेपी हार गई तो हिंदुस्तान में पटाखे निकाले जाएंगे.
JDU General Secretary KC Tyagi and AICC Chief Spokesperson Randeep Surjewala met the Chief Election Commissioner Naseem Zaidi over the issue. But not before the BJP top brass reached the Election Commission office and filed a complaint against the Grand Alliance, accusing it of communalizing the Bihar elections.
दो चीजें तय हैं, एक तो बीजेपी हार रही है, दूसरा दिवाली हिंदुओं में मनाई जाती है, मुसलमानों में नहीं. उनकी जानकारियां भी कम हैं. नंबर 3, ये बिहार के पिछड़े दलितों और गरीबों का अपमान है, जिनको पाकिस्तान के साथ आप इक्वेट कर रहे हो.
Addressing a rally in Raxaul on Thursday, Shah had said that crackers will be burst in Pakistan if the BJP loses in Bihar. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And the campaigning for the fourth phase of assembly election ended at 5 p.m. today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi wound up the campaign for the NDA with 2 rallies, while Chief Minister Nitish Kumar and RJD Supremo Lalu Prasad did the job for the Grand Alliance. 55 constituencies in 7 districts will go to the polls in the fourth phase on the 1st of November. 12 seats in East Champaran, 11 in Muzaffarpur, 9 in West Champaran, 8 each in Siwan and Sitamarhi, and 6 in Gopalganj, and 1 seat in Seohar will go to the polls in this phase. A total of 776 candidates are in the fray, with a maximum number of 30 candidates contesting from the Kurni Assembly seat, while a minimum of 7 candidates each are contesting from Harsiddhi and Kesaria Assembly constituencies. Polling has already been held in 131 assembly seats in the first 3 phases. Polling for the 5th phase will take place on the 5th of November, while counting of the votes will happen on the 8th. Let's now get you some more national news and updates nationwide. A special women's court in Mumbai sentenced to death Chandrabahan Sanap for the rape and murder of software engineer Esther Anuya. Sanap was convicted on Tuesday. The Mumbai Sessions Court termed the case as the rarest of rare. A low-intensity earthquake jolted the northeastern states and parts of Bangladesh this morning. The tremors were felt in some parts of Assam, Meghalaya and other areas. No casualties or damage to property was, however, reported. Family members mourned the death of an Indian businessman who was murdered in a shootout in the United States. 50-year-old Ashwin Patel was killed at a convenience store in New Jersey. His family in Anand has demanded that the Indian government intervene. In separate attacks, Naxals allegedly set ablaze 12 vehicles, including 2 passenger buses and some trucks in Chhattisgarh, Kanker and Bijapur districts. No casualties were, however, reported. Time for us to take a quick break. On the other side, all the international and the sports news as well, so stay tuned.
Faced with an aging workforce, China discontinues its one-child policy. Is it time to dump the Malthusian theory? Is the world today confident of trumping population growth? Watch The Big Picture at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, starting next month, heavy-duty commercial vehicles that enter the national capital, Delhi, will have to pay an environment compensation charge for causing pollution. The Supreme Court order is being seen as a landmark compensation model to fight pollution.
Starting from the 1st of November, commercial vehicles entering Delhi will pay an additional charge. The Supreme Court has decreed this as their penalty for polluting Delhi's atmosphere. The court reasoned that since most of these vehicles are bound for other destinations, they only pass through Delhi for convenience, better roads and less toll tax.
At least there should be a framework or the institution that has to manage, how it has to be managed, how you have to utilize the funds, what is the transparent mechanism that it establishes. And all those details have to be worked out.
According to the order, commercial vehicles passing by Delhi will pay compensation charges that vary from 500 rupees to 1,000. Toll operators will collect the payments at 127 entry points. With around 66,000 vehicles entering Delhi every day, the government could end up looking at a potential daily earnings of 3.3 crore rupees to 6.6 crore rupees. The court also directed the Delhi Pollution Control Committee to invest this on improving air quality and installing radio frequency identity systems as well as CCTVs.
Green tax, the environment law recognizes the principle of polluter pays. So invoking that principle, the Supreme Court has levied this compensation. It is an environment compensation which is imposed on the vehicles which are polluting the air.
The Supreme Court order supersedes all previous orders passed by various courts. This includes the October 5th order by the National Green Tribunal, which had called for a similar compensation model to mitigate air pollution. Rajkamal Rao's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, talks have begun in Vienna, Austria, bringing together all foreign powers backing the opposing sides in the Syrian war. The meeting seeks to close the gap between the US and its allies and the key allies of the Syrian government, Russia and Iran. That's the first time that Iran has been involved in a solution for Syria, but given the complex situation, there are only downplayed expectations.
More than a dozen power heads gathering for a fresh round of talks in Vienna to discuss the over 4-year-old war in Syria. On one side are the United States, Turkey, Saudi Arabia and other Gulf nations. On the other are two of Syrian government's staunchest allies, Russia and Iran. With rounds of failed talks behind them, the mood at the table is that of skepticism and caution.
I'm hopeful. I don't call it optimism. I'm hopeful we can find a way forward. It's very difficult.
Let's see if the work we have done in coordination with the US, with Russia in these days, in these weeks, allows us to open this political space and creates the possibility for a follow-up, for the beginning of a process that can lead us to a political transition in Syria.
The talks are the first high-level discussions after Washington's allies dropped their objections to including Iran. The US, Turkey, Saudi Arabia and other Arab nations have refused to work with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. They are opposed to any role for him in Syria's future, but seem to have given some ground, saying that although he will have to step down, it didn't have to be immediate. Assad's supporters, however, insist the main goal of the talks must be to launch a political dialogue.
که راه حل سوریه باید مبتنی باشه بر اصولی که این اصول مورد پذیرش هم است. عدم مداخله در امور داخلی سوریه، مبارزه با تروریسم، احترام به حاکمیت و تمامیت ارضی سوریه، احترام به حق مردم سوریه برای تعیین سرنوشت.
The divide between Russia and Iran and Western and Arab nations has only deepened since Moscow began airstrikes against opposition forces in Syria a month ago. UN humanitarian chief says about 13.5 million people in Syria are still in need of aid and protection. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, Myanmar will go to the polls on the 8th of November, its first election since a nominally civilian government was introduced in 2011. These elections end nearly 50 years of military rule. The elections are being monitored by observers from the European Union and the US as well.
Observers from the European Union began monitoring the early voting process in Myanmar on Friday. The early voting process will enable election and security staff to cast their vote, as they will not be able to do so on November 8th, the day historic polls will be held in the country. The EU will have 30 long-term observers and 62 short-term observers deployed across the country. The US-based Carter Center is also sending its observers.
We are here to deliver an assessment of the entire electoral process, not just related to the election day. So we are looking at the run-up to the elections, the campaign period. We're looking at the election day, and we're also looking at the weeks after the elections. And all of that information together will allow us to give then an informed analysis of the process.
After 49 years of military rule, many people are confused about the voting process. In fact, not many eligible people knew that an early voting process was underway. Meanwhile, pre-poll violence has marred the historic process. An opposition lawmaker and 2 other people were seriously injured in an attack on Thursday. The lower house lawmaker belonged to Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party. The attack raises security concerns for Suu Kyi, who is to hold a rally on Sunday in the heart of Yangon. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate has travelled the country galvanizing support for her party that promises sweeping changes, faster reforms and a state respectful of ethnic minorities. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time now for all the sports action and sports beat. The Indo-Swiss tennis combine of Sania Mirza and Martina Hingis entered the semi-finals of the WTA finals. The pair defeated Timea Babos and Christina 6-4, 7-5 in the last round-robin match. The Indo-Polish pair of Leander Paes and Lucas Kubor bowed out at the Valencia Open after a straight sets loss in the men's doubles quarterfinals. Paes-Kubor lost to unseeded pair of Australian-Brazilian pair. That's Chris Gruconi and Andre Sass, 6-7, 4-6. Vishwanathan Anand drew his third game in a row in the Bilbao Masters final chess tournament against tournament leader Wesley So of America. Defending champion Anand now is 3 points under the soccer-like scoring system and is under pressure to carve out a win in the next 3 rounds. Top seed Roger Federer reached the quarter-finals of the Basel International with a 3-set win over Germany's Philipp Kohlschreiber. The 6-time Basel champion won 6-4, 4-6, 6-4. Federer will play David Goffin of Belgium in the quarters. Maria Sharapova advanced to the semi-finals of the WTA finals. Sharapova eased past Flavia Pannetta 7-5, 6-1 in straight sets. Meanwhile, Radwanska also booked a place in the semi-finals, beating top seed Simona Halep 7-6, 6-1. Well, that's all from us.